I'd like to ask you a question. Do you like atmospheric games? If you answered yes, then you probably won't be as mad as the person who answered no. However, now I've got to try to convince you that not only have I found one of the greatest ones of all time, but also that it's not really a game but more a mod of a game, and oh yeah, by the way, it's free. It's called Stalker Anomaly, and I'm going to tell you why you should be playing it. Stalker is easily one of my favorite game series. It not only has an amazing atmosphere, lore, but the world, or the zone as we call it, just feels so alive without needing to rely on flashy things like hundreds of NPCs or big cinematic moments. Stalker Anomaly takes all of that greatness and fine-tunes it in a way that's not only refreshing for zone veterans, but a great starting point for newcomers alike. Things that made the games great, like being able to detach scopes and silencers on the fly, to making it simple as ever to add mods that make drinking water and eating food look a bit more realistic. The world within Stalker is ugly, but beautiful all at the same time. The zone doesn't care who you are or where you come from, and only the strongest stalkers will survive more than just a couple of days. But if this sounds interesting to you, and something that you might be intrigued by, then let's go back to the beginning, shall we? Now, Stalker Anomaly is not a game that you'll find on Steam or Epic Games, because like I said before, it's a modded version of the game and is 100% free to download. It's on ModDB, and the link will be down in the description. The page covers installation tutorials, so I won't be going over that in this video. The mod reads, "The standalone mod Stalker Anomaly claims to be the most stable and customizable experience for fans of the Stalker games. The page has detailed information on how it changes the Stalker formula, patch notes, along with bug fixes and things like that. I highly recommend following the installation tutorial." It's also worth noting that the Stalker Anomaly takes place 6 years after the original games, so if you haven't played those games, you're not really going to have any idea of who the major characters or locations are within the zone itself.
I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck.
But never fret. I'm going to link a great video by the YouTube channel Into the Zone that does a nice breakdown of the lore we know so far and does an excellent job of portraying the feel of the zone with visuals and storytelling. But if you just want to get hunting, let's get hunting, Stalker. First, I want to talk about the pros, what I like about the game and why I think it stands out amongst other games. Of course, I'll go over the cons, things I don't like, but personally it's a small category for me and aimed more at the original formula. And of course, we'll wrap everything up nice with why I feel you should be playing the game. First, let's talk about the good things and what you can expect from the game. Starting a new character gives you total control over the faction or military group that you start within, and if you're not familiar with who they are, there's brief backstories to each that explain their general motives and beliefs within the zone. You can choose your character picture, your name, different game modes, save restrictions, adjust combat difficulty as well as progression difficulty, and you even have some points to spend towards starting gear that'll help you survive just a little bit easier in the early game. This is a role player's fantasy, and I included love this type of setup in a sandbox style game. And there's even an Iron Man mode which works like permadeath and deletes all of your saves upon death. You can mix different builds, try different factions, storylines, and honestly, it's unfathomable how much control the game gives you over the actual gameplay that you experience. It's also worth noting that you can even go deeper than that by adjusting things like weather, timescales, how much vendors will pay for your loot, how much you have to pay for their loot, how quickly your items degrade. I mean, it goes even deeper than that, and it's all customizable from the start of the game and as you play through it. So we've picked our setup and started a new game. Depending on your faction, your starting area could be different, but I picked the Loner class because it's newcomer friendly. We open up our inventory and find our starting gear that we selected, some slots that we can equip them to, and best of all, our first gun, the pistol. Now let's show it off to our new friends in the zone. NPCs will sometimes react hostile if you walk up to them with your gun drawn at them. And I think this is one of those things that make the game so unique and just feels a little bit more alive. Also, we have third person, but I'm going to show you why we don't use it. Yeah, that's why. There are mods that fix this, but right out of the box, that's what you get. Right, safely back in first person, we meet our first contact, Sid. Now, Sid will be instrumental in some Stalker's early games, as he can provide quests to complete, gear that we can use to upgrade our arsenal, as well as buying things we find out in the zone. Some vendors will only buy specific items, but for the most part, Sid will take care of our early game needs. Now, some people may be turned off by the huge text dump in front of us, and the fact that there's no voice acting in Stalker Anomaly, but the voice acting that does exist is in Russian. And it does take a little time to get used to, but personally I find the Russian adds a sense of immersion to the zone, and after a while I kinda liked reading up on the backstories of different characters and brushing up on my Stalker lore. The text was never too much or overwhelming or anything like that, and it usually provides background on the zone and its inhabitants. Now, quests in Stalker Anomaly are pretty straightforward. Go here, find this, bring it back, or go here, kill this, come back. But because the world is so diverse and the zone is so interesting to explore, the quests never really felt repetitive to me. Yes, they themselves are usually of the same caliber, but it always felt like a new adventure because I rarely went to the same place twice, unless I chose to farm for items or explore that area a second time with a new item. I also want to bring up briefly that I did add a couple of mods during my playthrough. One of the reasons you see me taking my backpack out. That's not in the base game of Stalker Anomaly. However, I will leave a link to the mod in the description as it adds eating and drinking animations as well. But now let's get into one of the most important tools we have available to us as Stalkers, and that's the PDA. Now this is your map, quest tracker, and general hub for everything you do within the zone. And I love that it's not just a static screen, it's an actual item that you pull out of your inventory, and it even requires that you keep it stocked with batteries for it to work. Now we see our map for the first time. Now let's just admire how gigantic the map actually is. It is absolutely gigantic. And now I want to mention too that the PDA also shows not just your quests and map, but it also gives you statistics, general relationships within factions that you've met, people you've met, and you can even catch up on the latest zone gossip in the messages tab, if that's your thing. There's even a radio tab that honestly has some of the coolest tunes ever. I even found a song called S.T.A.L.K.E.R, which I actually listen to a lot now, and I probably butchered that pronunciation, but I'm trying. Exploring around the starter area, we find another quest giver named Fanatic, and he explains that he can show us a thing or two about the zone, and this is another reason I love these Stalker games. The game could just give you text dumps on what to do, but instead the game shows you what the zone expects of you and what you can expect of it through exploring the world and getting involved with those actions. The first thing he wants to show us is hunting, and this is a good chance for me to show you how the quests work within Stalker Anomaly. So after walking for a little bit, Fanatic and I finally reach our destination, and now it's time for our first taste of combat. So after composing ourselves after our first fight, Fnatic informs us that there's an anomaly field nearby containing an artifact that could be worth some money. Now, artifacts and anomalies are huge within the zone, so this is a good chance for us to check that out and kind of explain what it is he wants to show us. So we oblige and head out to the destination. So we arrive at the Anomaly field, and again this shows you how Stalker gets atmosphere right. The hums of the energy, the electric pulses, there's almost nothing here but everything here at the same time. Fnatic tells us that we need a special tool called an echo detector to find the artifact that lies in the center of the field. The anomalies could kill us if we misstep, so we have to pay special attention to our detector if we want success. I'm going to leave out what happens next, because honestly getting your first artifact is kind of a milestone for any new Stalker. Every experience is different, and I don't want to spoil anything by showing it in the video, but I do want to touch briefly on why these artifacts are so important and why we would risk so much to get one. Artifacts are scientific anomalies that exist within the zone. People from all over the world risk their lives for these artifacts in the pursuit of scientific advancement to something simple as just a quick payday. You can also use certain artifacts to boost your equipment, and some of the toughest Stalkers in the zone have some of the best artifacts in their possession. Different artifacts also do different things, from helping you with burn resistance all the way up to some that simply just drain your health over time. Science, bitch! After getting comfortable with the mechanics, it's time to start exploring the zone, and you can do this as fast or as slow as you'd like. The zone is deadly, and those that want to explore it will do better by taking their time. There's hidden stash boxes left by other Stalkers waiting to be discovered, as well as loot left around on tables and furniture. And yes, this is what it looks like, and yes, it's hard to find. But don't fret, simply stand back and hold the interact button to reveal all loot in your area. Alright, I've got my artifact, I've got my loot, I'm feeling good. It's time to take out the trash, Stalker style. Yep, this will happen a lot. You will die a lot. Which brings up another great point. Save games. Stalker Anomaly is entirely dependent on you physically saving your game. It does autosave when changing areas, but if you don't save your game, you start at the beginning, which can sometimes lead to this I don't remember what I was doing or where I was going kind of moment, which some could find a little tedious, and I get that, but honestly, I love it. It's just another way the game holds me accountable for what I do within it, and I think that this mechanic is awesome. So after I regroup, I just explore around a little bit, and I want you to experience this with me, because honestly, the world is just so damn good in this game. The sound of the growls that make you feel like you're being hunted, the gunshots in the distance, the branches rustling every time you walk past them. I am an absolute sucker for games like this. It's not always about being a badass or being Mr. Tough Guy. That feeling of never knowing if you're truly safe or not is one of the biggest reasons I love this game. And to speak on that, I want to show you a clip from a little bit later in one of my playthroughs that captures this perfectly, and honestly, I had to take a timeout after this one. feeling of uncertainty is one of the best things about this game. You never really know when you're safe and when you're not, and I absolutely love that. It's beautiful, honestly. Walking through the worn, torn zone while taking in everything around you is just beautiful in itself. There was one night in particular where I wasn't really looking for anything. I was just drawn out into the zone. So I walked around and just took it all in. Listen to how epic this sounds. As you can see, the pros section is very big for this game, and I'm hoping in what I've showed you, you're starting to see why I love this game so much. The atmosphere, the world you're existing in, the way the game teaches you to survive but doesn't hold your hand while doing so are all things that I find great about the game. But it's not always about struggling and being a weakling. Once I applied all the things I learned within the zone, spruced up my weapons, and applied better buffs, I felt absolutely unstoppable. I was silently taking down military while sneaking my way past mutants, and it feels so good to see your hard work pay off and see you go from a rookie stalker to one of the most feared stalkers in the zone. But it wouldn't be fair if I didn't point out some cons that people might find frustrating about the game. But I would like to emphasize before I do so that these are within the game itself, for the most part. Stalker is over 10 years old, and what the modders have been able to do and release for free seriously deserves our respect. I like to mod games myself, and I've personally spent thousands of hours within MO2 and Xedit and other programs we use to apply mods. So I know something of this size couldn't have been easy for anyone, and these are simply things that I'm being transparent about for anyone new to the game. So with that being said, let's get into it. One bug I noticed was sometimes NPCs would get stuck indoors or glitch into walls and just kind of stay there. Nothing that's game breaking, but it does kind of break the immersion a little bit in a game world that is honestly immersive at its core. I did notice this more common as I got further in my game, so I'm not sure if it's linked to the bigger cities or certain areas, but just something I noticed. Another thing I noticed was sometimes they'd just sit in the wrong direction, but it's okay. The zone gets to us all, buddy. Now, I didn't get any footage of this next bug, but at certain times when looking for artifacts, they won't spawn or they'll simply spawn underground, and you'll be left thinking you're doing something wrong or just not seeing it, but it's a bug. Simply reloading the game fixes this, which isn't too bad as long as you're keeping up with your save games. There was one time in particular where I just couldn't get the artifact to spawn and I ended up just giving up. The last thing I'll point out is the minimap, but I know this is more at the Stalker core rather than the mod. Although it's not hard to read per se, I did find trying to find NPCs that were either above me or below me sometimes a pain to figure out. There are indicators, but they're hard to see sometimes in a crowded room where all you see are icons on the map. In one section, I spent about an hour trying to find someone I thought was outside of a fence, and it seemed almost impossible to reach, but turns out he was underground in a bar. So a little irritating, but this is the only instance I remember feeling frustrated about the map. The map also doesn't mark certain objectives, which isn't too bad, as I like getting a little bit of direction and then figuring the rest out myself. But going back to the loot not being highlighted or standing out, I found myself just walking around holding the interact button, hoping the item I was sent to retrieve would pop up. 9 times out of 10 it did, so it worked, but still just a little tedious sometimes in dark bunkers or army barracks. One other thing that stood out to me that I had to mod out of my game is that in the base game of Stalker Anomaly, if an enemy gun butts you or you take enough damage, you drop your weapon from the impact. I personally don't like this mechanic, and like I said, I was able to find a mod that prevents this from happening. But the reason I bring it up is sometimes my guns would either glitch through the ground or simply disappear after I lost them. After losing a rifle I'd spend about 20k on, I decided that was enough, and I will also provide the link for that mod in the description as well, as it's become a staple in my playthroughs. But other than that, that's really the only negatives I have to say about the game. Again, some are game related due to limitations within the engine, but all in all, my main playthrough was smoother than most AAA titles I've played in the last year or so. So let's wrap everything up with a nice bow and summarize the main question: why you should play Stalker Anomaly. I think it goes without saying that the biggest reason is the atmosphere and the zone itself. The zone feels like its own character, in the sense that you're curious to see how it got to where it is, what happened in the past, and why so many people are drawn to it, the mutants and monsters that reside within it, and the wonder of how they mutated and why they roam the way they do. From brainwashed military factions to bandits trying to steal every scrap of everything you have, there is always someone or something around every corner in the zone. And it's the simple things, like the game not pausing when you're in your inventory, or not automatically reloading your weapons when your mag runs out. It's those things that make you feel in control of your actions and gives those actions weight when you choose to use them. And the game isn't holding your hand, but after a while, you don't even need it to. The game gives you the tools to be successful, but success is only granted to those who are brave enough to go out into the zone to find it. And I've only scratched the surface of this game. I've left things out thoughtfully because seeing these things and experiencing the zone is something I wouldn't want to take away from anyone. Learning about why factions believe what they believe and the stalkers who came before you is just something that's fun to uncover. Surviving your first mission or dying using a first aid kit only to realize you have to bandage your wounds as well is an experience that every stalker goes through and has stories to talk about. It's like your first Dark Souls game. It feels more like an experience rather than a game, and Stalker is no different, and that's why you should be playing this game. I just want to say thank you to anyone who's made it this far in the video. This was my first edited YouTube adventure, and honestly, I had a blast making it. I feel super passionate about this game, and anything I can do to get the word out, I definitely want to do my part. I feel like if you're a fan of Metro or Fallout or any type of post-apocalyptic setting, I really feel you'll benefit from this game, and it'd be a fun adventure for you to add to your stories. I just want to thank you again for being awesome, and good hunting, Stalker.